Well, so obviously, you're looking at the depth chart, it would seem like the offensive line is rebuilding. You lost your two best linemen, Billy Honecker and Peter Nesterwitz. Some of the other guys that played last year had up and down seasons. But then when I asked Coach Niemot about this, he said, I think we have the potential to have the best offensive line we've had in a long time. Based on what I've seen so far, I'm not sure what he's talking about. Can you just tell me what you are seeing with this offensive line? Because to me, none of these guys are all that proven.
Well, I kind of share Coach's optimism. I think we got a chance to have a really good group. A lot of these guys have been in our system for quite a while. And then we've got some young guys who, because of COVID, we didn't really get a chance to work with them last summer, who are really getting their first shot here with spring ball. And then some of the guys that are actually sophomores now, they missed all of spring ball last year as well. So we got a good group of kind of core guys that are going to be seniors, and we got a really good group of young guys coming up behind them. So I'm excited about them. I don't know if you want to go through the positions and kind of talk through the guys.
Yes, I do. Why don't we start over there on the left tackle side? Luca Fradiani got a chance to start last year at one point, but I don't think he was up to the task and he got replaced. I guess, didn't you move Honecker over there at the end to left tackle?
He was the right tackle.
Or Nesterwitz, you made a move.
No, Honecker went in and played some guard late in the year.
Okay.
Yeah, he went in and played some guard. No, so no, Luca's doing a good job. Luca's going to be a senior. And we're expecting big things of him. Right now, ahead of him, we've got Jake Casavello has passed him up for the time being. Now, as Scott mentioned before you got on, this changes day to day during spring football. So we're super excited about Jake Casavello, who's going to be a junior next year. He missed spring ball last year because of the COVID. We didn't have much of a fall camp, so he's really getting his first spring ball action, and he's doing a really good job for us. Luca's doing a good job for us. If we go over to the right tackle spot, Kip Franklin is a returning starter, so we're excited about him. He's injured this spring, so he's out there, but he's not a live full go. He'll be back 100% for fall camp. We've moved Bryce Teixeira out to tackle as well. Bryce started for us at guard last year, at left guard quite a bit, so we're excited about him. We've got Jamie Romo, St. Mary's, Annapolis, is running with the ones and twos, kind of bouncing around a little bit. He's doing a really good job for us, really smart, understands what we're trying to do, and is only getting better and better. And we got a young guy, Sam Glover, that's getting some reps as well. So we're excited about that group, and there's enough talent there to be really good.
I would like for you to start Jamie Romo, because then I could write a feature on him and get a free dinner at Harry Brown's. What about left guard? Big Ahmad Bradley. Good Lord, 6'3", 300. He sounds the part. Is he or Matty Conlon or Joshua Pena rising to the fore at left guard?
Ahmad's doing a good job. Ahmad's a freshman. He's probably not quite 6'3", but he's a big old good-looking young man. He's athletic. He's a great young man. He's tough. He's doing a good job. He is being challenged right now by Josh Pena, who's another plebe from Arizona that is doing a really good job. And if we had to go today, Josh would actually be ahead of Ahmad. So those two are in a nice little competition at the left guard spot. But both of those kids have a lot of ability, a lot of size, a lot of athleticism, and both have kind of all the makings of a really, really good offensive lineman here. Right guard, I assume that's where you'd go next. Nick Bernacchi is a senior from Northern Virginia, really good player, a lot like Jamie Romo, understands our offense really well, smart. And then we're just going to kind of have to figure it out from there. Nicholas Rowan, who is a sophomore now, he's really getting his first ever spring football action, is doing a good job. Lirion Murtese, is a freshman out of the Western Pennsylvania, is doing a really good job as well. All those guys have a lot of ability, a lot of size, a lot of athleticism, tough guys. They just need more reps, and that's we're through 5 days of spring ball. We still have a lot of improvement to make at guard, but I think they'll get there.
I know what the move was that I had talked about. Justin Self moved out to left tackle last season from playing center. That leads us to center.
Right.
Pierce Banbury got a lot of experience last year. Where is Pierce sit, and is it a big gap between him and it says Luke Coleman or this Darrelson Massey, whatever it is. Who is there a big gap between Pierce and whomever is behind him?
Well, Pierce is playing probably his best ball of his career. He's kind of our kind of seasoned veteran. He's doing a really, really good job right now. Probably leaps and bounds ahead of where he was this time last year. Probably leaps and bounds ahead of where he was at the end of the season. So we're excited about him. And then, maybe the deepest position we have is center. Luke Coleman is a big, talented kid that can play for us, that could help us, that we could win with. And then Darrelson Masanier is a plebe from Hawaii who may be as talented as any guy on the board. So we are super excited about all those guys. And then that gives you the ability, if one of those two younger centers can come around, well, we got this seasoned guy in Pierce Banbury, could he be a guard then? Could we move him around a little bit? Because he's played some guard in his career. So, there's 3 guys at center that are good enough to win with. There's a handful of guys at guard that are good enough for us to win with. There's several guys at tackle that are good enough for us to win with. So we're excited about them. And the beauty of it is there's competition. So we shuffled the depth chart today, and then based on our practice today, we'll shuffle it again for Thursday's practice, and then we'll have a big scrimmage on Saturday, and then we'll probably shuffle it again after that. So competition is the name of the game this spring.
Let's go to Scott Wyckoff, WBAL.
Hey, Coach, thanks for taking some time out for us. What's the biggest thing that you want to accomplish? What was your specific goal for your group coming into this spring as you get going?
I think just constant improvement. Every day we need to get a little bit better. We need to get a little bit tougher. We need to be a little more dependable, a little more reliable. And we need to, my job is to really teach the offense so they really understand what they're doing. And as a young player, really probably the biggest issue you have with them is there's uncertainty. So when there's uncertainty, they don't play as fast as you would want them to play. They don't play with the technique and the fundamentals that you'd want them to play with, because they're getting in their stance and they're, obviously contemplating and thinking about what should I be doing, where, the rules have to kind of become second nature to them, so they can then focus on playing hard, playing fast, playing with great technique. And then they can kind of focus on the details of their job rather than what they're trying to do.
To that end, how important is it to, even though things change, to have a sense right now of a stability at quarterback that they can rely on, so they're not going to be changing, in a perfect world like you had last season?
To be honest with you, that's probably been the least of our concerns. And our total focus for the offensive line is just developing these guys. And to be honest with you, Coach Jasper will coach the quarterbacks, and whoever he puts back there, we need to play at a high level. So that has not gone into my thinking. Maybe, I don't know if it's gone into our players' thinking at all, but in spring ball, it's about constant improvement every single day. So that's kind of been our thought process.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Let's go to Mike James, Rivals.com.
Coach, a couple years ago, you had the guys lose a little bit of weight because you wanted them to be a little more athletic to accomplish what you were trying to do.
Right.
Talking to Coach Niumatalolo a couple weeks ago, he said that this group has the athleticism to actually maintain the weight that they have and still do what you want them to do.
Right.
Have you seen that play out so far this spring?
Yeah, I think so. I think that kind of the weight loss, and probably the coach's note or point is it's really just individual. Can you move in the manner you need to move to be able to execute what we do offensively? And I think you just have to look at each guy. So there are some guys that, since they've got here, have had to lose some weight, but this group is going to be a bigger group. And athletically, they can move very well for their size. But yeah, so we don't have set goals of weights in particular. Like we don't want all of our tackles to weigh 270 or all of our guards to weigh 285. We look at each individual guy and say that your optimal weight to do what we want you to do is X. And I think just this year, just looking at them, Bryce Teixeira is a bigger kid. Bernake's a bigger kid. Pierce Manberry's a bigger kid. Pena's a bigger guy. Luke Coleman, Darrelson, Ahmad. Some of those guys are going to be good sized kids, but athletically they can hold that weight and they can still do the things that we need them to do.
How's the morale with the group so far this spring? I know last year it didn't really get a chance to prepare the way you usually would prepare, and weren't able to put forth their best showing through no fault of their own necessarily. Do they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder now because they want to make sure that they're putting forth something that is truly representative of who they are?
Right. Yeah, I think so. I think their attitude, their work ethic, I think everything's been awesome the entire spring. The way they're practicing now has been great. We've been throwing a few curveballs this spring as well with the extended ROM we had a few weeks back, but their performance, their attitude, the way they've approached everything, I don't think we could be happier with it.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Pete Medhurst, Navy Radio.
Ashley, just starting with the linemen for a moment. You mentioned a couple of the youngsters you're pretty high on. You guys lost significant time with them last year in terms of development. How do you guard against trying to now accelerate that timetable right now so they can continue to develop at that proper level to make sure that they're retaining everything that you're asking them to do, even though, as you mentioned, from a competitive standpoint, they're trying to compete for a job right now?
Yeah, it's obviously unique to my career that every sophomore on the football team and the offensive line, this is the first time they've gone through a spring practice here. The juniors, it's only their second guys that are going to be rising seniors. It's only their second spring ball, and the one prior is when they were plebes. So it's certainly unique. And not only did those guys miss spring ball, all of the plebes missed the entire fall camp. So it's almost like we're getting them out of plebe summer. I mean, that's kind of the state they're in. But I think they're doing a great job. And what we've tried to focus on is kind of what is essential, what do we need to do to be able to execute our offense. And so maybe there's some auxiliary plays and some auxiliary things that we would normally get to in the spring. We're going to hold off on some things because we really want to just kind of focus in on our kind of core plays, the core components of our playbook. We want to kind of focus in on the core fundamentals. I don't think it's going to set them back at all. I think it's actually going to probably put them ahead. I think it's kind of allowed us to narrow our focus. So I think, I don't think that's going to be an issue whatsoever. Then we've got all summer to work with them as well, and then fall camp before we play.
Just from a running game coordination standpoint, how do you guard against overreacting to last season? And, I know you're trying to, obviously correct things and, get that back to the highest level, but how do you not overreact to what you saw and what happened last year with that truncated season?
Right. Well, we've all been doing this a long time, and there's obviously a lot of different approaches. Kind of always my thought process is when things don't go the way you want them to go. And I think Coach Neilmott feels the same way. I think Coach Jasper feels the same way. Instead of going out and looking to add a lot of new, it's kind of get back to the basics, get back to the fundamentals, simplify things, and then focus on the things that we need to do to win games here. So I think our approach has been great. The way our guys have responded has been perfect. So I think we're going to see a different brand of Navy football than what we saw last year. And I think it's going to be a little more accustomed to what we're used to seeing.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Phil Bergman.
Coach, you just touched on this briefly. From a running game standpoint, what are the goals for this spring?
I think Scott asked something similar. I think it's just to get better every day. Obviously, we don't play until, I don't even know when we play. It's in September sometime. But we just got to focus on, today's practice 6, and can we improve upon practice 5? Can we correct some of the mistakes that we made last time? Can we learn our plays a little better? Can we focus a little more on technique? Can we focus on bending our knees and getting lower? Can we focus on, making plays when we're tough? Can we focus on digging a little deeper and knocking people off the ball? So I think it's just day after day after day, just keep stacking one day, from the next day, continue to improve, continue to work, continue to have a good mindset, continue to be excited about playing. And so far I've seen that.
You're a big recruiter. Just over the last year, not being able to interact with recruits face to face, what's that been like for you?
It's unique. We just recruited a class and we've never met any of them. There may be a few of them we saw, prior, and there may be a guy or two that's come to a game in years past. But so it's been obviously very unique. But just as we're doing right now with Zoom calls and FaceTime, and the interaction we've had with these guys probably has been greater than what it had been in the past. So obviously there's not that, physical connection, but we've probably talked to them face to face, through a screen more than we ever have. I actually bumped into a young man downtown Annapolis. Had never seen him in person, and he was like my long lost friend. I was like, oh yeah, won't say his name, and he was like, Coach. He came over and gave me a hug. So it's just, like everybody, just the world we're living in. And, we just adjusted and moved forward, and, unique, but I think it's been good as well.
And going off that, how beneficial is the new Ron Terwilliger Center for recruiting?
Well, it's going to be great if we can get them back on campus. So the dead period at this point runs until May 31st. Hopefully it'll lift then, and hopefully we can have people on campus this summer. But it's obviously a beautiful addition to, Ricketts Hall and to our facilities. I think it's we've obviously shown them a lot of videos, and we've walked around and FaceTime calls and showed them everything. So I think it's going to be huge in recruiting.
What is it about the offensive line that is fueling this optimism from you and Coach Niamat? Is it because they're big and athletic, pure and simple? What exactly has got you all so excited about this group?
I think that's a lot of it. They're big guys. They're talented. They can move. They're young. They've missed a lot of time with us. So maybe it's this, they're a little bit of a blank slate. Some of these guys is really the first time we've really, really worked with them a lot. So I'm just looking at the names here. I'm just super excited about a lot of these guys. I think their best days are ahead of them. And I think their mindset, their approach, I think all those things kind of fuel that as well.
So am I correct that yesterday was the first day in full pads hitting?
That's correct.
So what did you see? I mean, did guys seem like they're anxious to get after it? I mean, you've been lacking that physical component, or at least you didn't have spring ball, and you didn't do it in August. I know you did a little bit once you got going in the season, but I would imagine these guys are ready to get after it.
They were, like I said, Pierce Banbury may have had the best block of his football career yesterday. I was super excited about that. Some of these young guys have kind of jumped out at us. But again, yeah, they're excited about playing for sure. I know that was your question, but again, they're in their stances a lot of times because they're young guys and they're thinking about what to do. We still hadn't seen the best of them yet. And I think that's what's exciting about this group.
But that is kind of the goal for this from now until the end of spring ball, physicality, because that's what Navy's calling card is as an offensive line. You're physical. You come off the ball, you hit people in the mouth. I don't know that we saw that at the level we're accustomed to last season. That's what this spring is about, is developing a physical, nasty mentality, right?
That's it. You got it.
Anything else, Wags? All right, Scott Wyckoff.
Yeah, Coach, we talked about guys that are coming back and for their second or third years. You've had offensive linemen that's been on teams that have had great success running the ball, but on the other side, they've seen what it can be like when they don't play well. I would imagine that's an advantage, having that where they can reach up to that bar and know exactly where that bar is.
Yeah, I think so. But it's like anything, when we had a great season, 2 seasons ago, and, we didn't sit around and we didn't talk about it a lot. And to be honest with you, last season is behind us. There's nothing we can do about that right now. We are focusing solely on getting better today. And so I'm sure that's the case. That has not been kind of my thought process, or that was not where my focus has been. My focus has been on these guys, but certainly some of these guys have played on some really good football teams here. And then obviously to taste the kind of sour taste we got last year, we want to get that out of our mouth, obviously. But I think so. And we try to show as much film to these guys of Navy football teams past doing things correctly, the way we want to do it. But the motivation and the work ethic and the mindset and wanting to get better every day, that has not been an issue with these guys.
Why don't we start with the end position? DeAndre Williams is trying to establish himself there. I'm told that he's got competition. Coach Newberry said that Max Musin, I believe that's pronunciation, has shown some things. Is a good-looking player. Why don't you tell us where we are with the left end position?
Okay. Thanks, Wag. Thing I tell you is at that spot, it is a spot of competition, and we're trying different bodies out there. We've actually tried Jacob Busick there some as well. Like you said, Max Musin as well. So right now it's just a lot of guys competing. I think we got some athletic guys there that have a chance to be pretty good at the spot. Anxious to see how spring continues to go as we continue to get better. But right now it's definitely an open competition, not a guy that I can name right now to say he's the guy, but I can tell you I feel good about the prospects of bodies we have there to be very formidable at that position, to have someone there that's going to be a sturdy guy against the run and have some athleticism, can run too as well. So we understand what we're going to be replacing there. I think a lot of times we look and you see guys, and a lot of things are driven by stats. And you don't realize how much we're going to miss Jackson Perkins just for the type of leader he was. And, guy never had a bad day, on the practice field. He was always a guy that brought really good energy, which is really important to a football team. He was just a guy that did his job, and that's all we ask our guys to do. Just do your job, be unselfish football players. And when the plays come and present themselves, you make them. But just be guys that do your job with elite effort, and that's who Jackson was. So, but to answer your question, I feel good about the prospects we have there. I think we're actually playing DeAndre at some tackle as well. So I think between Max Musin, Jacob Busick, right, and DeAndre, we'll find 2 really good players that we're really happy and excited about.
Well, so Coach New had mentioned that DeAndre's gotten bigger, which may dovetail with what you just told me about him playing tackle a little bit. So, I mean, are we talking about him at end still, or is that still up in the air as to where DeAndre is going to go?
Right now, Wag, good question. We're just trying some guys out. Right now, he is playing tackle because we're trying to see what those other 2 guys can do. But the beauty of our defense, Wag, is the end and the tackle. It's a lot of similar transferable skill sets. And DeAndre has played end here for 2 years. So we want to try those other 2 guys out and see how they're doing, see how they do. And if they fit the bill there, DeAndre will play a tackle. But the thing I can tell you is DeAndre is having a phenomenal spring right now. You will see him on the field. You will see him playing and see him flying around because he's been really good thus far. But between those 3 guys, Wag, you'll find 2 of those guys playing in, and the other one, I think, will fill in at some tackle there. And Coach Hall does a phenomenal job. We speak the same language. That's why it was really important for us to get Coach Hall, just so when we do move guys around, it's not a big adjustment for them because we speak the same language.
What do you all like about Max?
He's just a tough, hard-nosed football player. He was a big-time wrestler from Wisconsin. His high school football team won a lot of games. He's a guy that in the spring workouts that had a really good motor. He's a guy that plays extremely hard. He's a guy where that you can ride by and just see doing a lot of things, working on his own, even when we're not out there. He has a want to be really good, and that's something that we like about him. Just his motor, his effort. He's a sturdy, physical football player. So those are some things we like about him.
Yeah, I believe he was a heavyweight state champion in Wisconsin.
Yes, sir.
Moving on to the other position you coach, the Raider spot. We talked with Coach New about Nicholas Straw. He got moved from inside linebacker out there out of necessity and kind of grew into the position, played pretty well at the end of the season. But Coach Newberry also had nice things to say about Max Sandlin. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on over there at Raider?
I tell you what, same thing, just got a lot of guys competing. I will say from up until 6 practices, Wagner's just 6 practices coming up here. I think Nicholas has really separated himself. He's had a really, really good spring thus far. He's a guy that's I'm feeling a little more confident, I think, in the scheme of what's going on. He's really good against the run. We got some things, that we're working to improve on, of course. But he's a guy that I think is starting to separate himself just because of his experience at the position. He's really sturdy. I've seen some improvement in pass rush. So I think the offseason that he had with Coach Fitz and Coach Miller was really important to him, just seeing his body start to develop and him moving a little better. But Max has had a good spring. I think athletically, Max can do everything you want that guy to be able to do at that spot. So just him continuing to be better. And I think John Kelly has also been pretty good this spring. So we do have guys competing every day. That's one thing Coach Newberry, set a precedence. When he first got here, the depth chart was built on merely off of winter workouts and how guys were working. And, so competition has been bred since we got here from Coach Newberry. So guys understand. We like to call it at the beginning of the year, it's just an organizational chart. It's not a depth chart. It's just a way we get organized in the room. But from the first 5 practices, I think Nick has started to separate himself from the rest of the pack.
Well, I would imagine that the offseason was also important to Nicholas because of the fact that this was a new position to him. And, he was learning on the fly in the middle of a season. Now, during the offseason, he's probably able to meet with you and really dial down on the responsibilities of the Raider and kind of really, hone in on the position. Would that be accurate, Coach?
Yes, sir. You're 100% correct. And then the other thing, too, I think is extremely important that sometimes we forget. If you think about it, Nicholas didn't have an offseason really until this little bit because of his first year. It got cut short due to the COVID. So he didn't have a chance. He didn't get that summer. So I think a lot of times the improvements definitely come from football, but a lot of times when those guys get with Coach Fitzpatrick and Coach Miller and they begin to get stronger and faster and those things, you see big jumps. So that's real big, I think you see.
Let's go to Scott Wyckoff.
Coach, what does it mean for your linemen and your guys on the edge to have a force like Diego out there with them that so much focuses on him and he's such a quarterback behind them? What does it mean to have him around your guys?
I tell you what, it means everything. I played defensive line in college too, and when you have a guy like a Diego for goal playing behind you at linebacker, he just breeds confidence. He just breeds confidence to not just the guys up front, but everybody on the defense. When you have that type of player there that can make the plays that he make. And then just Coach Volker does an outstanding job of all the things we put on his plate as far as, getting us set, making calls and those things. He makes them with confidence. And he's able to calm guys down when things may not be going as well as you want them to. He's able to respond to adversity. So to me, it just means everything. He breathes confidence to guys up front, and guys understand and they know that, if I do my job, I'm 100% sure that our Mike linebacker is going to be there to do his job.
And is it, there's so much focus on leadership on offense and quarterback and such. How important is that quote unquote quarterback for all the defense to have someone that they can turn to?
I think it's extremely important. Leadership at all levels is extremely, extremely important. And Diego has been a phenomenal leader thus far. When I look at the way he attacked the offseason, how hard he was working when he's at practice, he's been a phenomenal leader. And I think it's important because it gives guys confidence, right? It let guys know that, what, this guy believes in me. So it just makes me believe in myself that much more. And just when Diego come to you and say, man, you can get it done, I trust you, it means the world. And when we talked about that last year, I know Wag brought up Nicholas, we moved him in the middle of the year. And that was one of the conversations that I had with Coach Volker and Coach Volker had with Diego, just pull him to the side, just tell him how much, you believe in him and how we trust and we know you can get it done. And that meant the world to Nicholas as well. So that's extremely, extremely important just from a confidence standpoint.
And how important is the physicality going to be in these spring practices? Coach Niumatalolo said one of the main things he wants to see is live hitting. I know you've only had one live practice, but how important is that physicality going to be for your linemen?
It's extremely important because we understand everything comes with stopping the run, right? And you stop the run with physicality, right? You have to be in your gap. You have to play with really good fundamentals, but you can't go around how important it is to be physical at the point of contact and build walls. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be a physical football team, a tough football team, and that's where it starts. So it's just extremely important. Super excited about going against our physical offense every day. It makes us get better. The way those guys come off the ball, and Coach Ingram and Coach Aurora coaches those guys that come off the ball, and it makes us fundamentally a whole lot better. We can go against them when we got to play with great pad level and tight hands. So that's extremely important.
And finally, to that end, do you go back and forth? Do you give impressions that you have of the offensive linemen and the offensive coaches give impressions about your players after you get into a few practices?
One thing about it with Coach Niumatalolo, we always are talking about personnel and what fits us best as a football team, just on both sides of the ball. We all hear it. So it's been really good. I get to hear, what Coach, Ingram and Coach Aurora think about my guys, and vice versa. We do the same. Coach Hall and myself do the same, with those guys, telling them, man, they came off the ball, man, that kid can really, he got some pop, so it's really good to talk about those things and, see how those guys see it. When you're dealing with Coach Ingram and Coach Aurora, who've been doing it that long at such a high level, it's extremely important for me to hear that feedback and see what they think. So, yes, sir.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Mike James, Rivals.com.
Coach, you have kind of an interesting mix of players this year between guys that have returning experience, guys who started games last year versus other guys who have never had a spring or a fall camp. How do you balance the need to take the first group and kind of add on to what they can already do versus getting the fundamentals right with the younger guys?
So that's a great question. And you're right. It's a wide range of guys in the room. The one thing we always do from fundamentals, though, we're always going to start from square zero on fundamentals, for what way we do fundamentally. We're going to start at a baseline and build them up. Coach Hall and myself have a checklist that we like to make sure our guys get in the spring. We want to see this drill. They got to get this drill this many times and this, and, and we proceed as we see guys getting better at those things fundamentally. So every group, one thing Coach Newberry has done, everybody on our defense has like 4 core skill sets that a guy needs to do in order to be really efficient at his position. And everything falls in line under those skill sets that we try to do. So that's kind of our baseline of how we do it fundamentally. Coach Newberry does a really good job from a schematic standpoint of making sure we give our guys enough, right, to keep them chomping and make sure, they're studying and make sure they learn. And so from a fundamental standpoint, we have like a checklist of things we want to get done. Coming out of spring ball, the guys got to have this done. And we kind of look at film and you kind of, see where they're at and see where they're going and kind of see them progress. And right now we're right on track to where we want to be from a fundamental standpoint and the schematic standpoint of it. Coach Newberry does an excellent job of making sure our guys have enough and keep making sure they get things that we got to have to be really good at in the fall in order to be successful.
Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Phil Bergman.
Coach, with Jackson Perkins gone, who's stepping up as a leader in that position group?
Right now, it's kind of evolving. You know, we only threw 5 practices thus far, 6 today, and you'll kind of see it. But you see some vocal leadership from Nick Straw in the position. John Kelly is a guy that's been pretty vocal. The thing that I think you do see is Diego has been a lot more vocal with the front, which has been really good. And then Coach Hall and myself, we have to make sure we're being more vocal. I think you're starting to see that from those guys. So, but you know, we're gonna miss Jackson's leadership, but the one thing about it is somebody will step forward. They always do. In 2019, Nazir Cromartie was the best leader I've ever been around, right? And that was something that we were really, really concerned about when he left. And Jackson just kind of took it from there, and he kind of grew and it evolved. And he got, as he got more confident in his role as a leader, he became a better leader. So I'm anxious to see through the spring. And a lot of times, Phil, is built in the summer as well. That summer, that offseason with Coach Fitz and Coach Miller is extremely important as they work and grind together, because that's where leaders are built. It's built through the grind as you grind together. So I'm anxious to see how we, as we go through spring ball, we kind of develop as that leader, and as we go into the summer, as we head into the fall. But somebody will, like I said, I was extremely a little nervous, especially when Nazir left. Just the leader that he was phenomenal. And then Jackson was able to take it. So I'm anxious to see who does that.
I think we talked to Coach Newberry about sacks and QB pressures were down a bit last season from the year before. That comes into your position group, both Raider and end. Can you talk about that? And is that an emphasis during spring ball to try to push these guys to get after the quarterback?
Yes, sir. It is an emphasis. We're trying to simplify some things that we're doing. Starts with me trying to simplify some things that we're teaching them to do. And I think, though, Wag, when you look at it, it all starts with this. If you look at that stat, if you don't stop the run and not good against the run, you're not going to be good against rushing the passer. So our guys have to understand that. That's where it starts. When you look in 2019, we were really, really good against the run. Right now, you get guys in those longer down situations, and now everything Coach Newberry does is out to play, and we become a lot more successful. So we do want to be really good rushing the passer, right? I want to make sure everybody understands that. But for me and Coach Hall, our number one goal is to be really good against the run, and that's what we got to get better at. We get better there. I can promise you that stat about pressures and sacks will be much better.
Last for me, since DeAndre is kind of working at tackle for now, I probably should ask, that means Busick has shown you enough to feel that Max and Busick can man that other end spot. So maybe I should ask about Busick. What have you seen in him? And obviously he's shown you some confidence enough to let DeAndre work over there at tackle.
Yeah, he's extremely athletic. Bill, extremely athletic. He's a long, tall, 6'4", 6'5" kid, 260 pounds, can run. Got long limbs. Super excited about the player that he can become. You just got to continue to work, continue to get stronger, continue to get better in the scheme. But like I said, it's still nothing set in stone yet. But we have seen enough to say that we like what we see there, and I think he's has a chance to be a good player before he leaves here.